Let's bring in the Hall of Fame owner and general manager of your Dallas Cowboys. He's Jerry Jones here on Sean, RJ, and Bobby, 105.3 The Fan. Good morning, Jerry. How are you?
I'm doing great, Sean, RJ, Bobby. This is the most wonderful day of my life until tomorrow. And won't that be a dilly?
Well, look, man, we want to.
And that's the way you're supposed to get up and hit the shower in the morning. But, man, I feel like that this week.
Have you always been this optimistic, like even before you hit it big and had your business success or NFL success? Were you always just always an optimistic person, even in your high school, college days?
I had a guy that had, I just hung on every word. He was relatively young. He owned 400 Howard Johnson's restaurants.
Ooh.
And every time he would have a coffee with me, I'd be there with bells on. I just hung on every word. I asked him one day, where do you find all the chefs for all these Howard Johnson restaurants? You got to have several of them, and you got 400 of them. Where do they come from? And he said, well, I really don't, Jerry, find chefs. But I said, let me give you a little tip. If it's supposed to be cold, make it so cold that it burns your mouth like hot ice. If it's supposed to be hot, burn the hell out of the roof of their mouth. Make it so hot. Intensity covers up a lot of the frailties of the talent of cooking. The same thing holds true when you're not cooking and doing a bunch of other things. Intensity is what it's about. Well, enthusiasm is intensity, and you bet you have to work to get enthusiastic.
Wow. Good answer. That coffee thing sounds like a lawsuit, though, to me.
Very McDonald's.
Now, Jerry, we just want to start off congratulating you. Like, we're on a high this entire week. We didn't think that the division was actually going to get done until that marvelous Philadelphia collapse. So you're sitting here winning the NFC East, the number 2 seed. Not really a question to go along with it, but congratulations, because I think all of DFW is on a tremendous high.
Well, I'm excited for all of the fans in DFW, and I'm excited for all the fans all over the country. Yeah. This team has really hung in there. We have gone through what is known as a marathon. This is not a sprint. You start a season off, you've got 17 games to go. That used to be almost 2 college seasons. You had 10 games in a college season. That meant that some of the people start off as sophomores, and by the time they're at the last game, there'd be juniors because we play that many games. So it's a long journey, and you have to see where you are when you're, of course, at the end. We have pushed this thing up here in about as good a shape as I could have ever imagined or drawn up. It's important to be healthy as you can possibly be when you get to the end and get in the playoffs. I don't know when we've been any healthier, all the way across the board. Certainly our key players, but the entire team would get a big A+ for health. Secondly, I'd like for this bunch to have been shot at in their foxhole and hit a little bit. You don't want to go into a rough situation with nobody that's ever felt a little angst or a little fear or all of the things that go with it. This bunch has been shot at and hit. And so that's good. And then not only that, we were instituting a change in what we were doing as a team, really on both sides of the ball. And to digest that change and to go from there to getting it and executing it at a high level like we are right now is real impressive.
Yeah.
And I think that the last couple of games that we've, in all phases, have played as well as we've played all year. There's going to always be some plays you want to take back. But to make those big plays and make them at the right time, have the players that should be making the big plays, making them at the right time. All of that feels like your plan worked to a certain degree. But to be where we are right now is too much to ask for, really, when we were at training camp.
Jerry Jones here on The Fan. That's what I was going to ask you. How different is this team today that finished the regular season from the one that you thought you had drawn up at training camp?
Well, they're daylight and dark. First of all, they've had small lifetimes to be dramatic, Norm Wave a little bit. But, boy, they've gone through on an individual basis. Some of them have gone through minor or really significant injury. Some of them have been on IR. Some of them have not only had their game challenged a little bit or their own performance challenged a little bit. Most have had ups and downs throughout the year. If there's anything that football is about, period, if it contributes anything to our country, it's the people that play it from the standpoint of playing it, is that without the high price of major conflict, if you will, you get to get involved and you get knocked down. And I mean, you do get your nose bloody. And you do get up. Everybody wants to quit. Everybody wants to quit, not without exception. And to put yourself into that and push up against unnatural things, and I sound dramatic, but it's not natural to get in front of 300 pounds. You want to get out from in front of it. So you have to call on yourself to be unnatural and execute on that kind of basis and at the same time be skilled. To me, that's what you have seen with this team go before your eyes and evolve, and that's what we're taking to the field in the playoffs. Now, the other teams have had a measure of that as well, and that's why the competition is as high as it is right now.
Jerry Jones joined us here at 105 through the Fan. You know, we've talked in this room off air and on air, reminiscent about that 07 team and the missed opportunity that it was. It was a great chance to make the NFC Championship game in the Super Bowl. Do you view this as like a similarity with that team, and in the case that it's, hey, this is a great chance to make the NFC Championship game for the first time since we won the Super Bowl?
Well, I've had a chance to be involved in 3 Super Bowls and know how we got there. And we did it with some of the very same players, but we added a few players. The difference in the second Super Bowl that we were a part of back in '92 was Deion Sanders. He came on board. He made a little difference. Larry Allen made a little difference. He wasn't on board for the first 2 Super Bowls. Actually, at their positions, they're the greatest players to date that have played in the NFL. And so we did add some talent for that 3rd Super Bowl. But my point is, this team and how we have arrived here, this team has some outstanding players. Do they have rare players? We've got some rare players. We do. Do we have a big challenge ahead of us to play some other teams in this day and time? You didn't have salary caps back then, and you had more continuity. You had more continuity on your rosters back then. But like I told you, I wouldn't dare try to redo this thing on a gimme if you told me I could and try to get here any better. I just wouldn't try.
Jerry, you know, you guys are entering the playoffs pretty healthy. There are a couple of questions. Obviously, Tyler Smith missed the last game with that torn plantar fascia. And then at the end of the game, we saw in the second half, Stephon Gilmore have the shoulder issue. How do you feel about their availability heading into this game against the Packers, Tyler Smith and Stephon Gilmore?
Well, as much as I understand plantar fascia's injury, I'm told that if it tears, then that means a much quicker recovery and get back to form. And that's the case with him. Now, as far as somebody that mentally has the capability to play with a recent injury or play with some pain, he's type A. He's one of the best you can have. He's highly intelligent. He understands completely the nature of his injury, and he understands how to play through it. So I'm really optimistic that we'll see Tyler back. And it did completely tear as opposed to partially tear, which does create lingering serious pain. And we've seen all of that, but his is the kind and the result that you want to have if you have that injury. I personally think he'll be back playing.
And is it realistic to think that Gilmore can go out there and be what he's been for you guys throughout the season after an injury like that?
Well, I don't know. I know that it could have been worse, and we all know what he means to us. And so, is it a realistic chance to count on him as we get the team ready to go this week? The answer is yes. Yes, we'll count on him. We'll have him out there. He probably will have limited practices, but all of the professional people we have that have dealt with these kinds of injuries ad nauseum say that you can count on him. Go easy on him all week long, but he could very easily be what you want there game day.
Jerry Jones on the home of the Cowboys, 105.3 The Fan, every Tuesday at this time. Give us a little Packer preview. How much recent homework have you done on these guys, and what do you think about this version of a team you're familiar with in the playoffs?
Well, they're young. They're the youngest team in the NFL, and I am impressed with their quarterback. And he's been through their system, and they had a plan for him from the day they drafted him. And he's got a lot of skills, and he's playing really well. And they're a young team. They are very talented with their receiving group, and so they're a playoff team, and they've earned it the hard way, and they've done what you want to do if you're a playoff team, and they've gotten better than they were when they started the year. They've evolved into a much better team. They've played themselves into a much better team, which is the definition of a successful season.
Jerry, do you expect there to be a lot of Packer fans in the building, and are you taking any precautions, and can you take any precautions of keeping those nasty people from Wisconsin out?
Well, I really am thinking those nasty people are going to try to mess up our all-white presentation that we're trying to make out there. But let me tell you, Green Bay Packer fans, they travel big time. And they've got one of the greatest fan bases in sport. And they're one of the inspirations that made me want to get involved on a daily basis in my life in the NFL and football is the Green Bay Packer aura. And so they bring all the tradition in the world. And it just, since we don't get to play them twice a year as a division opponent, it just seems like that when you say the Green Bay Packers, they bring a traditional celebratory feeling to this ball game. So again, I'm doing some exciting arm waving here today, but to play the Green Bay Packers, they're certainly one of the great institutions of our league.
But Jerry, that
sport.
Yes, that's never really bugged you though, right? There's going to be a lot of cheeseheads that show up. You haven't said, all right, we got to figure out a way to try to keep them out from a zip code or ticketing standpoint. That's never really bugged you, right?
Well, I've tried to ban them and didn't get very far there. And I've tried to figure out which ticket they wanted and raised that out of sight, and they won't let me do that. But other than that, no, I just take it as it comes.
All right.
Jerry, there's been several reports over the last 24 hours that, the Panthers, Chargers, Commanders, they've all reached out and asked for permission to interview Dan Quinn, your defensive coordinator. Are you confident that you're going to be able to keep him around for a third hiring cycle in a row?
Well, let me put it like this. We've had several of our coaches. We've had several notices. We don't have to give permission anymore under the most circumstances. But we've had several of our coaches already receive letters of request. That's what happens when you have success is your coaches become available for elevations and opportunities. And it happens throughout your organization. And so that's just part of it. And the league is built so that it promotes advancement of coaches and basically executives that have been a part of a successful team.
And Jerry, same sort of thing. Albert Breer reported just within the last hour that Will McClay's also generated a lot of interest, and that Carolina's interested in talking to him. So is Washington. Same sort of question. Do you have confidence that Will McClay is comfortable here in Dallas, and you won't have to fight with any other teams for him?
I will really say to you, without trying to be evasive in any way, we have had over a handful, and by the time the day is over, we may have 3 handfuls of requests to talk. And so Will definitely is one of the ones that get talked to, but we'll have as many as 15 or 20 before we're through.
Jerry Jones here.
Very common nowadays because of the turnover that you have around the NFL. But you can't in any way be discouraged by that. And as a matter of fact, you might even want to encourage that, because that creates a real opportunity for somebody to come in and advance their careers by joining you when you have a vacancy. And we'll probably have several vacancies this year.
Jerry, I have a general question about that, just to try to keep diving inside your business mind to steal some of the success one day. Because I remember being in the car the 2 times that it was announced that Dan Quinn was staying, but just in general, when talking someone into returning, is that like is that a challenge that gets you revved up? Do you have a special strategy to it because you somehow manage to pull it off way more often than not? Or does it usually just come down to who writes the biggest check at the end of the day?
Well, you've got to have some logic behind why maybe another year or two would change the scene for him and have a better situation and better opportunities. So it's a combination of those things, because if they were looking at a situation that would improve their finances, then that's something you have to talk about and should talk about as well. But certainly that's a part of it is if you do want to keep somebody, then you have the ability to counter it. But here's the thing that I want to make sure is I had a guy one time tell me, I went to see him about Exxon giving a political contribution for Bill Clinton, of all people. And the guy, I said, I know he's returning for governor and you'll want to contribute to him, Exxon. And he said, Jerry said, governors, senators come and go. Exxon's infinity. We're going to give you, little governor, some money. Exxon's infinity. So the facts are that I will say, including yours truly, the NFL is infinity relative to a story like that. And in a sense, the Cowboys are too. And all of us that get to be a part of this thing come and go. And so, yeah, we've got to put it together, and we value our relationship with everybody that's associated with. But as it would turn out right now, I can really use the word thousands that I've been associated with and paid a check to with the Dallas Cowboys.
Well said. We'll finish up with this, Jerry. We know you were asked about the reports about, Coach McCarthy's status and all that, and your statement after the Washington game at the end, we'll see how each game goes, seemed like it was leaving a door open for possibilities. Is there anything you would like to clarify, confirm, follow up when it comes to being asked about Coach McCarthy's status?
Well, I was a little surprised. I don't know how I could be any clearer. Coach McCarthy's under contract for next year, and so that's not an issue. Secondly, I couldn't be more pleased with what he's done and how he's coached. Now, apart from sitting down and going over the daily receipts and going over the detail of everything we do out there, I don't know how you can answer a question any different than that. I certainly haven't sat down here right in the middle of the playoffs and started talking to him about something like a contract or something like that. Why would you do that? This is where he needs to have. He, by the way, is the busiest cat in all of Texas. Now, you talking about a one-armed paper hanger being busy, he is that. And so the last thing that I want to do is spend any time talking with him about these kinds of things on agreements, extension of agreements, especially when I've got one.
Yes.
So that's it. And I've said I couldn't be more pleased with what he's done, and I really mean it. He has really made as big a difference from his head coaching vantage point as anybody could from any vantage point in the NFL. He's the big difference this year.
Jerry, I think our interpretation didn't come from expecting an extension. I think we took we'll see how each game goes as, well, maybe he could be not with the Cowboys anymore if the playoffs don't go right. That's how most of the media interpreted or spun it.
Well, I'm so sorry that media might interpret what I say differently. That's rare. I don't have that happen very often. Y'all really think I'm going to discuss this damn press conference?
Well, we had to ask you about it.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Jerry. We appreciate it. Best of luck on Sunday.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Let's have a great day.
Yes, sir.